This week, we have the honor and privilege of sitting down with the one and only Matthew Munson. And when I tell you his story is one of the most inspirational and just unbelievable story that I've ever heard on this podcast. This guy has been through prison, he's been through jail, he has been through it all, and all to come out on the other side. And I'm not doing any spoilers. I want you guys to listen in, to dial in, to listen to this amazing story of this unbelievable individual, Matthew Munson, how he's gone through some of the toughest environments and come out on the other side to be immensely successful and paying it forward in an amazing and beautiful way. So dial in, don't miss this one. All right. Matthew Munson, welcome to the My Tribe podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Dude, I was blessed to be connected to you through a mentor of mine, Mr. Michael himself, and immensely grateful for your time. And I can't wait to share your story. Our intro call was nothing short of amazing, and I don't think it's going to be anything less than that for our viewers here today.
Yeah, likewise, man. I had a great conversation with you. It was a pleasure meeting you. Shout outs to Michael for linking us up and putting this whole thing together. And yeah, I'm excited as well and can't wait to dive into everything and hopefully we can help some people out there today.
Let's go. So,
Yeah.
a lot of what we talked about was, well, one being your story, which I want to get into, two being a lot of the power of vulnerability, empowerment of sharing one's story, and finding strength in, situations and things that may not have felt like strong moments for us in life. So, what road do you want to go down? Do we want to talk a little bit about your story first, we came up, or we want to talk a little bit about the strength of sharing your story? Where do we want to go here, Bob? Where do we want to go, Matt?
Well, yeah, man, I just suggest we just start, where it all started, man, and just come up and really build some framework out so that like, hey, who is this guy? Quick intro if you don't know who I am. My name is Matthew Munson. I am a serial entrepreneur from Illinois. I lived in the Midwest half my life and grew up in Las Vegas. Got two amazing kids, two boys, 16 and 14 years old. So I'm just blessed to be a parent, blessed to be here today. So a little bit of backstory about me. I was actually born in the suburbs of Chicago. And unfortunately, my mother and father, they struggle with some substance abuse issues. And so, we were pretty much just living wherever, homeless shelters, domestic abuse shelters. We lived in our car. We lived on the streets. We lived in crack houses. Wherever we had a place to lay our head down is where we did it. So it was a little bit rough coming up, but it was so long ago. I barely remember. I know I remember a few moments that from back then, but other than that, I ended up moving to Las Vegas. You know, grew up in the public housing over there. Only white person in the entire neighborhood. So as
Around
you can
what age?
imagine,
Around what age did you move to Vegas?
so it was right around like two.
Okay.
My mom, we moved around a lot. Who my mom was dating at the time, and was really who we were living with at the time in Vegas. We were living with one of her boyfriends that eventually became her husband. And so, yeah, my father, my biological father, he was in and out of in prison a lot, and he was just kind of going down a rough patch in his life there. So he wasn't around. So we were just staying with boyfriends of my mom and just bouncing around. My mom was doing what she had to keep us in a safe environment, all while battling her own demons that she was going through. They had like a $1,500 a day crack and heroin habit, and they didn't have any jobs. So they were walking around like hustling through the streets. I remember my dad taking me and my sister like door to door. Like he had some script that he would use. Like his car broke down, but he was a very like, for a drug addict, he didn't look like the typical, like run of the mill kind of crackhead guy. He was a very presentable guy. He's had some demons, hung out with the wrong crowd, unfortunately, and ended up getting into some trouble. So he, unfortunately wasn't around very much, but the time that we did get to spend together was awesome. I love my dad. I don't blame him for anything. I actually appreciate all the things that they taught me indirectly by being addicted, by going through all those struggles. It really motivated me to never want to ever try those drugs. So that was one thing that they saved me from. So I can luckily sit here and say, besides, marijuana, I have never experimented with any drugs, never tried any, never had the desire to do any. I don't drink. So, you know, thankfully, their addictions were able to save me and my family and my kids and the next generations from being substance abuse users as well.
Wow. I mean, to find the silver lining in that is amazing. A lot of people would just play the victim there. Wow, amazing. So now you're in Vegas
Yep.
and you guys are going door to door and he's doing schemes to keep up a $1,500 crack and what else?
Heroin.
Crack and heroin
So
addiction.
my dad,
1,500 a
when we moved to
day?
Vegas, my dad wasn't in the picture. He had went to back to prison, so
Okay.
we moved to Vegas. So at that
Okay.
time, my mom was with a man, but it wasn't my father.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but he was a construction worker, big drinker and stuff like that, kind of abusive. Uh, so that's what really kind of played into why I don't drink, because I seen people that drink. Everybody that I knew that drank was either violent, crazy, getting arrested, Oh, there was always something, I was like, oh man, why are people doing this? And then they got
What's
like
the
crap the
what's
next
the
day,
appeal?
but yeah, so luckily I was able to I was one of those people that was always trying to learn from something. So whether that was a good or a bad lesson, I was trying to learn from it. Sometimes I took those lessons and I applied the teaching, and sometimes not so much. Sometimes I had to forge my own path. So and we'll learn
Mm.
about that a little bit more into the story. But yeah, as far as when I was a little guy, yeah, we were just growing up in the projects, only white family there, severely infested with cockroaches, like literally like some of the worst like conditions I've been in, little 8-year-old like heroin dealers in the area. It was crazy. I got jumped my first day of kindergarten and thrown in
First
this
day
big
of
hole. Like,
kindergarten?
yeah, it was rough. I got on, I was like this little quirky little white boy with this Ninja Turtle backpack on, and I came out there like, and yeah, I was humbled really quick.
Wow. Okay. Oh my goodness. That is
Yeah.
welcome to Vegas. To
Yeah.
projects
Right.
in Vegas.
Absolutely. Yeah, and from there we moved on quite a bit as we moved around with my mom and her boyfriends and stuff, and we eventually spent a little bit of time in Idaho and some in Arkansas and just kind of all over and trying to find a way. And yeah, luckily, our paths brought us back to Vegas under some unfortunate circumstances with my mom and her husband, and he wasn't exactly the best guy and did some things that he shouldn't have been doing. And so we ended up moving. We fled to Vegas in the middle of the night, grew up, jumped on a Greyhound. My mom abandoned her car and we went back to Vegas. And that's where another struggle began because my aunt, they already had 4 kids, so they had a big family. And my aunt, she was doing like cocktail waitressing, and my uncle lived at or he worked at a crane company. So he was making some good coin, but unfortunately he had some gambling addictions. So my whole
Mm.
life has been surrounded with people with addictions, but I think that is such a blessing because like I said, I have never gotten to any of those things. I've never went down that road or had to suffer through any of the those transgressions that they had to go through. And all of that I attribute to witnessing what they were doing and seeing what I didn't want to do. I never judged them. I was never mad at them for any kind of time that they missed with me or anything like that. I appreciated the lesson that I was being given. And I just realized, hey, you know what? I never want to be a crackhead,
Mm.
and it just was something that I never wanted to be. I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be struggling like that and begging people for food. And, we used to get food pantry stuff. The church used to donate food just so we could eat and stuff. So, I mean, we were so broke we couldn't even afford to pay attention, man. So, it was hard to stay focused.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I'd imagine. I mean, now when you were surrounded by some of these people, whether it be gambling addictions or drug addictions, were they saying like, Matthew, don't go down this road? Were they enticing you, or was this more of a self, like an inner thought that came about where you were not didn't want to be involved in that? Obviously, you were
Yeah.
young, but where did that self-belief come from there?
Honestly, man, I think it was just God because, yeah, they never tried to. It was like one of those things like we knew it was going on, but like nobody really talked about it. It was until a big event that happened with my uncle where he ended up gambling his whole check for our Christmas, and then he disappeared. And we didn't have any Christmas, didn't have any Christmas presents yet. And, he felt ashamed to even come back home and face us knowing that what he did. So that was like the big, huge thing. I was like, well, I'm never gambling. And then when I realized that, hey, this is not a place for gamblers to be living in Las Vegas because it wasn't built off losers.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, most certainly.
So yeah, that was a big turning point for us. Luckily, he was able to kind of get his stuff together and stop that gambling out. I think that was a big pivotal point in his life as well. So thankfully, he got that wake up call, and yeah, so we were just running around Vegas. 9 people in one house in a 3 bedroom. It was pretty cramped in there, but there was times that we had to eat cereal with a fork to save the milk. For the next kid to have cereal. So just imagine the person before you ate Fruity Pebbles and now you got Cocoa Pebbles or Fruit Loops and a weird taste with all those milks and
All those food
flavors in
dyes
it.
mixing together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be good in the milk.
No, yeah, but we made it work and we didn't complain. And one of the biggest blessings is that I grew up so poor that I was able to appreciate the small stuff and appreciate the small things that my mom and dad were able to do for me when they were able. So, but unfortunately, through all that process, you know, we uh we did all that struggling and you know my mom just kind of never really got settled down. She was just in so many relationships, and that's what led me back out to Illinois, is because she rekindled something with the old high school flame or something out here. So I went from Las Vegas, the city of sin, city that never sleeps, and went to this small little town called Arlington, and it had probably about 13 people, and that was including the livestock. So it was just eerily, deathly quiet at night. It was crazy. I hated it. It had snow here. I was like, this sucks. So yeah, and when I was in Vegas, I used to hang out with a whole bunch of like gang members and stuff like that. So I was already kind of mingled in with the wrong crowd. Like, just for full transparency, my father was a white supremacist. My sister is half black. So you can only imagine what kind of turmoil that caused in the house. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was pretty crazy. But I never really got into the racism. It wasn't something that I understood. I didn't understand how you could hate someone that you never met. I understand meeting people that sucked and not being a fan of them. And I completely agree with that. But hating people you never met, I just really never, and then like the strong, like the adamant racism was just, I just didn't understand it. It wasn't my thing. So I kind of rebelled. And when I was living in Vegas, I was surrounded by the brothers.
Brother.
And so I was listening to hip hop and I got introduced to like all this gangster rap. And that was back in the 90s. So I'm living on the West Coast. 90s music is all over. So I'm a big fan of this gangster rap stuff, hanging out, living in the projects, the same things that these rap guys were talking about in these songs was the same kind of reality that I was living in. I couldn't relate to the country music. I couldn't relate to the pop music or the quote unquote like the white people music. I didn't relate to that. I related more to the struggle that the rap and hip hop community was preaching about. So really kind of drug me in, kind of got lost in the facade of like the dope man and the money and the girls and the chains and stuff like that. So I always wanted something like that, but you know, being a child that never came from anything, I never even met anybody rich, never had anybody even wealthy or well off that I could even talk to. So I just thought everybody was broke. I thought there was rich people up here on this mountain, and then there was us at the bottom and scraping for the crumbs, and no fault of my parents. They were raised the same way, came from even more impoverished upbringings and stuff like that. So it was
Mhm.
uh it was tough, and but what could you do? So I just kept pushing and kept grinding. And once we came out here, I really was, I guess it was in like almost a rebellious kind of state because that's when it really started. And I was a pretty decent kid. Besides, I hung out with the gang members, but I was really smart. I was really doing good in school. And it wasn't until about sixth grade is where I really started being a class clown. And I think it honestly was just a self-defense mechanism that I had created to have people like me. In sixth grade, I literally had one outfit. I had one pair of jeans and I had one t-shirt. So I literally used to have to skip every other day just so it didn't look like I was wearing the same thing. And
Wow.
I mean, it was you're coming in there, you're coming into young manhood and going through puberty and liking girls and stuff like that. And they don't want this broke guy that doesn't have anything and has these tattered up jeans and with rips in them and stuff. And So that's when I really started realizing that like the class clown and the comedy, I could get people in. Like it kind of let down the guards, the barriers. I was already a little bit abrasive because I grew up in the hood. These people grew up in the country cornfields, so it was a huge transition.
Mm.
And they're like, who is this crazy white guy that just came? It was like a blast from the past. And so yeah, I just came and found humor to help, but also I started, like I said, as a self-defense mechanism, I wanted to be the tough guy. I wanted respect. I wanted people not to mess with me because of my low self-esteem, being from where I came from, my self-limiting beliefs, and just realizing that I wasn't going anywhere. And yeah, and then I started getting in trouble, man, and actually ended up getting incarcerated the first time at 12, and unfortunately went down a long, hard path after that.
What did you do you remember what it was that you got locked up for at 12? What'd you do?
Yeah. So you remember way back in the day, I don't know if your dad got like the Finger Hut magazines and stuff, but they used to come with like this clear package, and it had like some screwdrivers and ice pick in it. It was like a little pocket protector with some like little screwdrivers and little tinkets and ice pick and stuff in there.
Okay.
Well, what I did is, not being very, very smart, obviously, I walked up to an ATM machine that was attached to the bank, and I tried to break into the ATM machine to get some money. And well, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize there was cameras on it. And there was actually a bank employee inside of the bank while I'm trying to break into this thing. So he's like, man, what is all this ruckus? So this van comes like just flying around the corner, and it's me and my cousin there doing this. So we're freaking out. And the mindset that I was in was so crazy. I'm in here breaking into this ATM machine at this bank. This van comes around the corner. I think I'm about to get picked up by like a child molester or something. So we take off running. We're like, oh no, this is like a blacked out van. This is like the movies, and it's like 1 in the morning. It's very late. Long story short, I ended up getting arrested, and they put me in like the little juvenile detention center.
Mhm.
And what was crazy though is being that, my mom was struggling still so much financially, I was literally eating better in the detention center. Like I had structure, I had meals, they had movies, they had like DVDs and stuff like that. We barely even had cable. Our power was getting shut off. Like, so, I mean, I was like, man, you know, it wasn't like I went to jail and I was like, oh no, I never want to go back there. I was like, hey, that place actually wasn't too bad. So it really desensitized me to crime and the threat of the punishment behind it. So I never really, I didn't really learn any lessons. And that was why I kept kind of using the jail system as a revolving door, unfortunately.
Wow. It was almost like a hotel stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was eating good. That was the first time I ever had name brand cereal was in there. We were able to get seconds and stuff like that. So I mean, I was in heaven. Some people go to jail and they get all swole and get all muscular. I went there and got a little chunky.
Put some meat on these bones,
Oh
man.
yeah,
I
I
want
was eating
meat.
good.
Wow. So, okay, I'm sure that was a short bit of a stint essentially. And then we went back out and kind of just
Yeah.
snowballed into to bigger and more risk involved, I assume.
Yeah. So basically, how I really even kind of got started into crime is really out of necessity, right? Like my mom couldn't afford stuff, and who was I to come, and I wanted, obviously growing up in the projects, I wanted the new Jordans, I wanted, the cool Nikes and the cool clothes, but who was I to burden my mom with getting $100 shoes or these,
Mm.
$40 jeans or, you know what I mean? So I just pretty much, not saying it's right by any means, but the mindset that I was in is I can't ask my mom. Nobody else is going to give it to me, so I got to get it how I can. So I would be stealing clothes from the department stores just to have clothes and shoes and stuff like that. So I just got really good at stealing stuff. But I never was like robbing people or like trying to hurt people. It was just always like department stores or something like that. And stealing on necessity. I had to steal all my school supplies, pencils, paper, all that stuff like that. I would go to the dollar store and, like I said, I'm not proud of it, but that's just the way that I had to survive at the time, and or the only way that I felt that I could survive. And yeah, so I just started stealing and stuff like that. So after I went to the D home, and my father had all obviously told me jail stories, and he was kind of like a shot caller in the gang, in the white supremacist gang he was in. So inadvertently, he was trying to deter me from prison, but it actually kind of gave me like this little, and as weird as it sounds, I was like really intrigued by it. I was like, oh wow, like I really And looking back at it, I can just tell that it was a child craving structure. And that's what I didn't have at home. Like my mom wasn't around. She didn't have very good control over me. So I ran the streets. I did what I wanted. I talked to her how I wanted. I came in when I wanted, so I was really just kind of raising myself and raising myself in the streets. So that structure is what I needed. But, obviously as a child, that's not what you want to hear. So,
We know it all in fifth, sixth,
right.
seventh, eighth grade. We figured it all out. Don't tell us nothing. You kidding me?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I knew everything. But
Uh,
yeah, unfortunately, my father passed away a couple years later after that. And
mm,
that's when I really kind of, and oh yeah, I forgot an important detail here. When I got locked up for the first time in actual juvenile prison. So I went to that detention center for the ATM thing. They gave me 3 months. I got out a couple weeks later. I forgot even what it was. I violated my probation or something. So they sent me back, and then I had to go to the juvenile prison and do they call it the court evaluation, and you just do some time and come back in the courts and decide if you learned your lesson. So I went to jail, which is, the detention center is pretty much, kid jail. And so I went to kid jail, and I was like, man, that ain't bad. We eat good, structure, it's cool. So now I'm a little nervous walking into this prison. I'm 13 years old. I've lived a kind of crazy life, but surrounded by people that murder people and all, sex crimes and stuff. I ain't used to being around these kind of people. I'm just, and so I'm going in there a little scared, a little nervous, and end up getting in a fight like the day after I get there. But other than that, same thing. Like the food was good. I mean, they would pack it on the plate. They had a gymnasium. I learned how to play basketball in there. I learned how to play baseball in there. They had a pool. They had frisbee golf. I mean, they had like so much stuff that I could do that I never had any kind of exposure to as a child. So
mm,
I ended up liking it, to be honest. And I know this sounds so strange, but I had the structure in there. I was cool with the guards. I knew a lot of the guys just from being in and out of there. So honestly, it was more like summer camp to me than prison. So it was so hard for me to learn my lesson in that regard and really be scared of jail. And unfortunately, I, kind of fed into that. Once I started going to jail, I got like this, it was like this respect that I had, around school and around the area for going to jail. Like everybody, so it was like some kind of weird validation for me, and was how I kind of fit in, and people were, scared of me or whatever. And so then I kind of, got a little bit more self-esteem. I was like, all right, people like me, people want to be around me. And so again, jail wasn't, a big threat. So I was getting in trouble. I was being really reckless. I ended up doing something horrible. I stole a car with some kids in it, went on a high-speed chase, crashed a car. And so that was a crazy experience. And they tried to charge me as adult. Luckily, they didn't.
mm.
I'd still be in there. But yeah, so got a second chance and just kept messing up. I just once my dad went, and oh yeah, so sorry, I got distracted.
You're
So
good.
my
You're
first
good.
time going to the juvenile prison, my mom came in and she said, "Hey, look, I'm not going to keep doing this. So as of today, I'm not coming to visit you anymore. I'm
Mm,
not going to write you. I'm not sending you any money." And I was like, okay, okay, mom, just trying to give me some tough love. I get it. I get it. So in jail, like when you're preparing for a visit or event, they give you a certain amount of outfits throughout your stay there. Like you usually come in, you get 3 pants, 3 shirts, socks, boxers, all that cool stuff. Well, everybody usually cycles the same 2 outfits. And then one outfit from the day that you get it, you put it under your bed and keep it in the plastic, and it creases it so that you have nice presentable shows. It's almost like putting on like your suit, or like with putting on some dress clothes to go to these visits, so you can look your best in front of your girlfriend or your mom or whatever, right?
okay. Okay.
And it's just something everybody did. They kept an outfit to the side to do so. So I had mine under there. The next weekend comes, I'm thinking mom's coming, and the visits are on Saturday and Sunday. So in the morning, I put on my suit, I'm ready to go, and I just waited by that door for like 12 hours, and she didn't come. And I was like, okay, well, maybe something came up, maybe she's busy. So Sunday rolls around. I do the same thing. I wake up, I'm excited, brush my teeth, I'm ready to go. And, nobody came. And it was that night that I cried myself to sleep that night. And from that day on, I didn't feel like I lost a lot of love from my mom. And ever since then, we weren't very close, unfortunately. And then when my dad died, it was just like, well, now I don't have anybody out here. So I was living very reckless, still not getting into drugs, but I was stealing cars. I didn't care. I actually took a prison sentence for one of my buddies because I knew that he really couldn't handle it. And I knew that I'd only do 9 months for it. And I didn't think he would be it. So I just took the case for him. And as crazy as that sounds, um,
Wow.
but that's one thing that I have always been is I've always been a loyal guy. Like if you ever did anything for me, you ever helped me out, since I had so many little people that did that, like I really like felt indebted to people. Like if you helped me, like I was your ride or die. Like I would do anything for you. So that was one good trait I always had, a character trait. But yeah, I just kept, going in and out of jail, in and out, in and out. So I was away from my sister a lot. So we lost touch. We weren't close. My mom wasn't close. My dad was gone. So it was, I just felt like I was out here on my own, and I just didn't really have any purpose, didn't have any self-love. And I was just pretty much in full self-sabotage mode, unfortunately.
Wow, man. That's that's powerful. I mean, you see so many people go away and these detention centers are supposed to, teach people that, you're trading your time and you're in prison and it's the scariest thing and you're supposed to learn your lesson. And I mean, meanwhile, somebody who had such a tough upbringing is looking at the ruler of discipline and saying, "Wow, there's a bouquet of flowers on the other side of this. I have a fresh meal. I have a warm bed. I have friends. I have structure. I have people like mentors I can look up to." And I always sat back like, how do people keep going back to jail? Like, what is this cycle? And but to see, I guess, when there aren't any other options, it's almost like, well, it ain't that bad.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
sadly enough, and there was so many other kids in there that were just as lost as I was, and that's the saddest thing. Because there's a lot of talented people in there, a lot of good kids that just was raised wrong or raised incorrectly. A lot of people came from the same struggle, and honestly, another thing was the comfort factor. A lot of the kids that I was locked up with had a very similar upbringing to me. Their parents were on drugs. Their dad was incarcerated. So I grew up a white boy pretty much trapped in a black man's world. I was surrounded by black people my whole life in the hood and in jail. So that just came to custom. And that's, pretty much formed a part of my personality where, I resonated way more with black people than I ever did with white people because only thing I knew was white people was my family and, quote unquote rich people. And back in the day, I don't know where you grew up, but when you're in the hood, like rich people, like we make fun of them, like we were bullying rich people because like we're like, oh, you rich, you rich snob and you
Hmm.
knucklehead,
Yeah, you
like it was their
yuppie
fault
pricks,
my
all that
parents
good
make good
stuff.
decisions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's wow, man. That's a unique upbringing. So I guess let's keep going. It's an amazing journey.
okay,
Let's not stop. Let's keep going.
okay,
So
yeah. So
we're in juvie, I guess we're right.
yep, yeah, I got it. So I started going to juvie quite a bit of times. I went there. I went to the juvenile prison 4 more times before I quote unquote graduated to adult prison. At 17 in the state of Illinois, you can start going to an adult penitentiary. So I pretty much ran out of youth and transition in about 2 months into me being 17. I caught an adult felony. I was with some people and I was not trying to go back because I only got out 2 weeks prior. And I was like, I just got out. I don't want to do this. We used to call because every night we'd go around and we'd like break into cars, like, or not really break into them, but if the doors were open, we opened them and like ransacked them pretty much and like stole change and CDs and stuff. Just being knucklehead kids, with no drive, no purpose, no care for anybody else, unfortunately.
Yeah, Friday
Uh,
night shenanigans.
right. Yeah. We just
Yeah,
said, hey, we're going to go car shopping and,
car
get
shopping. I
it
love it.
done. And I was walking around with these guys and they're like, yeah, we're going to go car shopping. I was like, hey, look, brother, I just got out. Like, I'm like at least trying to stay out and, get up with some girls, man. I just got out here. And, so they went out and did their thing. Me and another guy, we stayed on the opposite side of the street, kept on walking. Well, as fate has it, somebody was actually 2 blocks away. They were breaking into a house and stealing firearms. So the police were already around the neighborhood that we just happened to be walking through. So as soon as the
No.
police came up, I mean, natural instinct, I'm on parole. I've been, in and out of trouble my whole life. my natural instinct is to run even if I didn't do anything. So that's what I did. And luckily, I mean, well, unluckily for me, uh, the K9 was a lot faster than I was.
What? The dogs got your ass?
Oh man, they chewed me up, man. They tore me up all up in my buttocks and everything, man. I felt like Forrest Gump, man. He got bit in the
Oh,
butt.
what? For doing the right thing. For doing the
Yeah,
right thing.
exactly. And yeah, they pulled me in and they caught some of the other guys. I think one guy got away that night or something. And so the guys were just like, yeah, he didn't have anything to do with it, you know. So they let me go. 3 months later, I was, smoking a couple of doobies with my buddies and I got the munchies and walked to the gas station. Lo and behold, a cop is standing in the gas station. He said, "Hey, did you clear up that warrant?" I said, "What warrant?" And he snatched me up, man, arrested me. They put out a warrant because I was an accessory to the burglary because I was there and I did nothing to stop or report it. And in Illinois, there's no accessory law. So you just got to take the whole charge. So I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I was like,
What?
hey, I'm not guilty here. I'm like taking this thing to trial. Like this is a no-brainer. I didn't do the crime.
Yeah, I
Like I
really
didn't even
didn't
know
do
what
it.
was
Yeah,
stolen.
what are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I'm taking this all away. My first offer they come at me with was 6 years. So now my case, it carried 3 to 7 years possible. So they come out with 6 years. I said, 6 years first offense? Come on now. I know I got a juvenile history, but none of that can count in this. So they're like, this is our first offer or whatever. And my public defender, he was like, it should come down. So just give it some time. So gave it a little bit of time. They came back and they said, all right, cool. We'll give you 4 years with boot camp. Whether they had like a boot camp program that you can go for like 186 days or 183 days or something. And it would take your big sentence and convert it to a small one if you completed the program. So instead of doing like a year and a half, you can do that 4 months and then get out relatively early. And I was like, with all due respect, I don't work out when I'm out in the free world. And I'm not going to jail to work out. And I definitely don't want people yelling in my face. I had a huge problem with authority at the time. So I just seen this as not an opportunity, but for a setup. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm innocent. And it was at that point my public defender turned to me and he said, "You're not innocent. I wish you would stop saying that. You are guilty. You need to plead guilty or they're going to slam your ass." That's exact words. And I said, "What? You're supposed to be the guy that's helping me?" I was like, dude, I literally did not do this shit. And I know you hear this every day, but I sincerely did not do this, bro. There's no evidence that I did this at all. And he's like, all right, if you want to play hard ass, you're gonna see. I was like, dude, I'm like, so imagine you're 17 years old, facing this 3 to 7 years in prison for something you didn't do. You didn't do it. And the only guy that's in charge of helping you beat this case is telling you that you're guilty. So I was like, oh my God, like this is insane. He comes back and he says, all right, since you rejected the offer of boot camp, they said they'll give you this 4 straight years. So in Illinois at the time, you would do 50, they cut off 50% of your time right out of the gate and for a good time or day for day. And then you get they had like a 6 month program that you can get out. So I was like 2 years, they'd cut it out in half, it'd be a year. 2 years and then cut it down to 18 months. I had already been in the county for 3 months. So I was like, hey, I do 15 months. Even though, and I'm rationalizing just to get out of here, like, hey, I'll just go do this 15 months if I get to go home. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking
just
about
just
it,
to start over fresh. You didn't even do anything
yeah,
wrong, but like
yeah,
just to get rid of this thing already. Wow.
exactly. Because I didn't feel like I had the, I didn't feel like I had the right representation. So I was like, if I go to trial, is this guy even gonna fight for me? I mean, I might as well represent myself, and I don't know
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but I went and before I told them that I was gonna accept it, I went back to my cell and I was just thinking about it, and I said, you know what, man, hell no, I didn't do this. I'm not taking 15. I don't want to take a day after what I've already done. So I
Mm.
said, you know what? And like in the criminal world, like when you keep going through the system, you kind of know how to play it. You know how it's kind of ran, you know how they do it. So everybody, unless you are innocent, you don't take it to trial. Because if you go to trial, they slam you because you wasted like the state's money. So if
Gotcha.
they find you guilty, you're getting almost the max penalty guaranteed.
Mm.
Right.
So it's
So
like it's like 15 months or like 6 years you're looking at, or like possibly
right.
3 years because you cut it.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like
Okay.
it's a gamble, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really are innocent, cool, go fight it. Hopefully your guy can beat it. But if not, you're getting slammed. So,
Mm.
but I was just so confident. that I was like, dude, I did not do this, man. There's not a shred of evidence that they could present that said I was involved with this shit at all. I literally walked away when it was happening. It was on the far other side of the street.
Hmm.
So I said, you know what, man? Tell them I'm taking it to jury trial. And jury trial is the most expensive. So you can have jury trial or bench trial. Bench trial is a
Right.
little bit cheaper. Jury trial really is taxing on, the county's budget. So
And that's
jury,
up to you as the proposed to be guilty.
yep,
As the suspect. It's up to you if
yeah,
you want a jury or bench trial.
yep,
Let's go. He went all
exactly.
the way. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, dude, I'm taking this to jury trial. This is a home run. I'm just feeling like the man. I was like, dude, how the heck? This is a no-brainer, dude. A guy fresh out of law school could beat this shit. I
Hmm.
didn't do it. So we go to pick out our jurors the day that we pick out our jurors, because you can like cross-examine the jurors and kind of pick them out and get rid of ones, and stuff. So the day before, like right before we went to the courtroom to do this, they said, hey, the state came back and they said they'll give you 3 years. Oh no, they said they'll give you time served, which means you'd go home right now. So like no prison time. You go home right now, but you got 3 years of probation. So I started evaluating and I said, well, the cocky me, the ego, the guy that, like I said, when we're younger, we think we know it all. I said, well, shit, if they're coming down to time served from 6 years, they know they ain't got shit. So now I feel even more confident. I said, dude, F off. I'm not taking anything.
Let's go.
Roy, we're taking this thing to the finish
We're
line. I got this
riding.
shit. He's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Hell yeah, man. Tell him F off." So
Mm.
cool. We went through the jury selection, got to it. A week before my actual trial date, he came back and he said, "Hey, listen, they just came back with an offer. They said time served, leave today, 1 year probation." So now I'm really thinking I got him. Dude, these guys are scratching. Like, because really now this is the least amount of sentence I can get. There's nothing less
Yeah.
that I can get at this point.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, I'm going for the gusto. I'm beating this shit. I don't even want it on my record now, you
Yeah.
know? And so I took it to trial, man, and I lost, dude. I freaking lost because of that accessory law,
What?
bro. So he
Because
said,
of a technicality of the way the law was written.
so the judge, when he's handing down my sentence, he said, listen, I know that you didn't do this, right? Because we literally I had a witness literally that came to court and testified that I did not, like, I was not involved with the case, like I didn't do it.
Mm.
And so he said, with that being said, I'm not going to give you the maximum, but you are going to prison. And I was like, so I didn't do it, but you're still sending me to prison? And they're like, yeah, man. So they gave me at least they only gave me the minimum. They gave me 3 years. So I'm going to 3 years. Ironically enough, the guy that actually did the fucking crime got 2 months in the county and got released. And here I am getting 3 years in the fucking penitentiary, didn't do anything. I was like, oh my God, man, I got the worst luck ever.
My gosh.
I'm the world's worst criminal. So do not take after me. Crime does not pay.
Holy shit.
Oh,
Okay. So now this is
yeah.
your first time going to real adult prison,
Yeah.
correct?
Real adult prison. Yep. Like with the baddest of the baddest. And so yeah, I went in there and I was just, but I was just so institutionalized, to be honest, at the point, it was just, hey, this is just another institution, it was just like all the years that I've been growing up. Oh, this is another school. Hey, this is another high school. This is,
Mm.
another house. So I was used to, stuff changing up in my living environment being kind of shaky. So it was really a pretty smooth transition. I went there, they sent me to a minimum security joint. I mean, it was sweet. I mean, we got to hang out on the patio all day. We were playing guards and games, got to blare your radios, got to cook out there. I mean, it was a walk in the park. And I was just like, um, I was like, all right, cool. So yeah, I went through that process, got out, obviously, still didn't learn my lesson. And then I got into trouble again. So I pretty much embezzled money from the company that I was working. I was working at a Papa John's pizza place
Mm.
and I was dating the manager, so I had a lot of the codes. So I figured out a
Okay.
way to manipulate the system and create more money for myself. I was hacking the system when the deliveries and stuff, and well, I ended up getting caught, and they sent me away. They gave me another. So what happened is the ironically enough, this is the craziest, and this is how my luck is. This is what I'm saying. I'm the world's worst criminal. And so I would, when I was working there, I would give people like free pizzas like that I knew. Like, say if you were my buddy and you're like, hey man, I'm coming through to get a pizza, I would just comp it and give you the pizza,
Yeah.
right? So I did that a few times with my aunt, and I was the manager at one point, so I had all the inside codes as well. And so, my aunt, she would call for pizzas. I knew that they were broke too, so I would just be like, "Hey, listen, tip the driver really well, and I'll comp the pizza."
Yeah.
Still trying to be noble, still trying to,
Doing the right thing.
think that I was
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, ironically enough, when they're doing the investigation on these orders, they can't prove that everybody didn't have a coupon, right? Because what I was doing is putting that there's a coupon given, which zeroed
Oh,
it out. They
okay.
had a free pizza coupon. Like, people used to get free coupons for, oh, you cut my pizza wrong or didn't do it in the square slices or too much
Mhm.
pepperoni, not enough, blah, blah, blah. So it was very like common to be giving comps. So it wasn't anything out the normal, but I was abusing, and I found a loophole that if I went out there, and that was my problem. Like, I was super smart, but I always used it for the wrong things. So I realized that the cash orders, if I could zero those out and then whatever money that the people gave me, I can just keep, because I really only have to turn in nothing to the store because it's a quote unquote free order. So I would comp only the cash ones out. So if they called over the phone and did cash, I would do it. All the rest of them, it was all legit. I did everything by the books. So I learned how to manipulate the system. Long story short, they catch me. They're doing the investigation. They're going to all these people's house and they're like, "Hey, did you pay cash for this?" And like, "Well, shit, I don't know. Probably I ordered 100
Yeah.
pizzas. Like, I can't remember." And so ironically enough, they go to my aunt because she was one of the ones that had a free pizza coupon, and they're like, "Hey, did this guy give you a free coupon or like a free pizza or whatever?" And she's like, "No." She thought she was going to get me in trouble,
Oh, geez.
giving her a free pizza, and in return, that's the thing that booked me, bro. The $20 freaking pizza that I gave my aunt.
Oh,
But since I already had a
oh,
previous burglary felony on my thing, they upped it. They upped that small theft of that $20 pizza and upgraded it to a felony and gave me a class 4 felony. So gave me another
God.
year in prison for that. So I was just like, oh my God. But
Wow.
you know, totally 100% my fault. Everything was my doing. I did it. I deserved it. It
Yeah.
is what it is. Um, so yeah, man, I go to that one, and that's honestly the only prison sentence that I actually learned something from, man. I had an epiphany one time, and that really is what started to change the trajectory of my life.
Mm.
And it wasn't just overnight. I just one day I woke up, and at that time I had kids, and this is the only time I ever went to jail while having children. So it was different. Everything else, I never had nothing to lose, never had anything to come home to. Now I do. So it was a little different. It was hard. I only did 6 months on this out of this year sentence, but it was a hard 6 months being away from those boys, and that's what really helped me. But one day I just had an epiphany. I was a piece of shit, horrible thinking, stinking thinking, just, always out with a negative mindset, tough guy attitude all the time, and super institutionalized. But one day, just, I mean, literally, I just walked up to the mirror in my cell and I said, "Man, are you going to be a piece of shit your whole life? Are you going to watch your fucking kids grow up through pictures, growing up through the lens of a Kodak, while some guys out there, having relations with your baby mama, probably treating your kids poorly, treating them like crap, and all you have to do is blame yourself. You put yourself here. You always look for the fucking easy way out. You always use your shit for the wrong." And that day, I said, you're either going to grow up and be like your dad and just keep going in and out, in and out, in and out, and never be able to raise these children, and someone else is going to raise your boys, or you're going to change. And that very next day, I went out and enrolled in college classes. And in the prison system out here in Illinois, if you use some good time, like you can earn good time for like going to school and stuff like that, or going through drug counseling and stuff. Well, if you use it one time, it's like one and done. Like, you can't use it on another sentence. You only get to use it once. So you have to be strategic if you're a career criminal. But I used it on my first sentence because I got that 3 years that I wasn't expecting to get. And so I got my GED and got some time knocked off on that one. So I couldn't use it. But I said, you know what? I'm not doing it for the good time. I'm doing it for the value. And I got in there, and it was a career technologies class that I was able to get in. And the cool thing about it, taught me how to type, and taught me how to write a resume. And then it taught me something that I never even learned. And this is where my first lesson in money came. For some reason, the lady had a course of Dave Ramsey's.
Mm.
And so we would go through it, and I was the only person in the class that actually paying attention. All the other people were like, "Dude, I'm getting out and getting a kilo and flipping this
Mm.
and
They're
you know."
doing their good time, essentially.
Right? Yeah,
Because you're
exactly.
invested, essentially.
Yep. So I
Okay.
was really the only one locked in. I mean, I'm fucking acing assignments. I'm locked in. I'm trying to be the best fucking student in there. I locked in with that, and it started showing me like how to budget, taught me how like insurance and investments and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, like stuff that I had never even been exposed to. And I was like, wow, like this is crazy. So it really piqued my interest. And so after that class was over with, because it was a very short class, after that was done, it kind of just like, it put something in my head where I wanted more. So I started looking up, in the library on the internet that they would allow us to use, and looking up professions that would hire career like people with multiple felonies. Because I knew that I was put myself in a bad position now with all these felonies, all these priors, no solid work history. I knew that I'd pretty much back myself in a corner to only get shit jobs.
Mm.
But so I started doing some research, and they said that a CDL driver can have felonies, and then they make pretty good coin, right? And my uncle was actually a semi truck driver, and he was making pretty good money. He was gone all the time, um, but I seen that he could make some money there, and I was like, okay, cool. I like to drive already. I think this would be a good fit. So I got out and was going through the motions, trying to work jobs. Really wasn't, I got out, worked at an Olive Garden, hated it. I was a dishwasher, it sucked. And I was just like, man, this isn't for me. The 9 to 5 grind. I tried some other jobs, they suck too. I was like, man, this 9 to 5 stuff sucks. And so eventually I started, unfortunately dabbing back in and started selling some weed and started doing that kind of thing to generate some money for the family. And not saying it's right by all means, of course, but just doing what I had to do again, but taking the easy way out, right? So I'm still kind of changing, but the mindset hasn't shifted yet. It's still kind of tiptoeing in because I've never seen another way that actually worked, that I could actually know someone that did something legit, did it right, made some good money, and was living, because I wanted to live like the rappers were living. And I didn't
Mhm.
see any 9 to 5 white collar guys or blue collar guys living like that. These guys were struggling paycheck to paycheck, hated their lives, hated their wives. It was just, that wasn't something that like appealed to me. Like I didn't want to do that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go get my CDL. So I go to the college to sign up for the CDL and find out that they actually have a grant program that if you're on state assistance, which I was because I was, didn't have any income. So I had like the link card, whatever, like the food stamp benefits and like medical card. So if you had that, you automatically got approved for this grant.
Mm.
You can get
Okay.
one college class, one course for free through this grant. So I was like, man, this is my opportunity. This is the thing that I needed. So I go through all the paperwork. Everything is good, solid. Boom, get the approval letter. They're about to release the funds. And back a while ago, I don't know if you were following, but in Illinois, you know, there were some tiffs. I'm not a political guy. I didn't really follow it, but was just affected by it. But for some reason, they had a government shutdown in the state of Illinois. The guys couldn't come to agreement or whatever, so they shut the budget down. Well, that left my funds that I just got approved to get frozen. So now I'm left with a fork in the road. I have everything ready to go to change my life to get this CDL. Now it just, the carpet is just ripped out from underneath me. And I was just like, damn, like, what am I gonna do, man? So I just drove home and I was just like just feeling defeated, man. It was just like, why anytime I look feels like I'm trying to do something right, I always like get bombarded or I fall into this trap or it's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Something's got to give. So, I just kind of thunk on it, over the next couple of days. And then I just told myself, well, if they're not going to pay for it, somebody has to. So if you want to do this shit, you're going to have to just, pull up your bootstraps, buddy, and get to work. So I found an opportunity at this place called Del Monte. They like makes like corn and vegetables and all that stuff, like the canned good place.
Mhm.
And where they work you like a slave, man. It was like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week mandatory, seventh is an optional. You had to sign like a waiver to do it,
Optional.
and yeah, it was crazy. And but I didn't have any time to spend the money. So that, I mean, that was a good thing, but I wasn't seeing my kids. Like it was just locked in on this. And I was just like, I need to make this $4,400, which is the most amount of money I'd ever seen in my life. And I
Mm.
was like, I got to make this money to pay for the CDL course. I can't let this go. This is what I need. This is my opportunity. This is how I'm going to go legit if I'm ever going to go legit, or I'm just going to stick, being stuck to and paralyzed by the easy way out. And
Mhm.
so yeah, man, I grinded it out, man, and got my CDL. And the messed up part is I actually had a guy that said, "Hey, if you get your CDL, I got a job for you driving a concrete truck right away. Like just get your
Okay.
CDL." So that's why I was so adamant, like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go do this. It's gonna open up an opportunity. This is gonna be awesome. Well, the dude flaked on me. I told him, hey, I got it. And he's like, oh yeah, sorry, man. I already gave that job away. I was like, what? Like, dude,
Oh.
like I just spent 4,400 bucks on this. Like, oh my God, like this is horrible. So boom, there I am again. Now I got a CDL, but I ain't got no truck to drive. I ain't got no company to drive for. So I was like, dang, man, like stuck again. So then I went to
Mm.
selling weed again, just to survive. So I started doing that again. And then it fell on, and I was helping out. I had some friends at the time that were in the same business, and they were a little bit farther ahead of me, of course. And so I was doing work for them and taking chances for them to earn money. And so it came down to a point where there was a drought, right? Where there's no more weed coming from out of state to fuel
Mm.
this business. So what's
Mm.
that leave for me? No money. So I'm living in this apartment. It's 3 bedroom apartment, and I'm living in a small town. So when I tell you this rent, you're gonna like your jaw's gonna hit the dang ground. The rent was $375 for a 3 bedroom.
375. Wow.
Yeah. And I was two
Wow.
months behind on my rent, bro, at 375. I felt less than a man. But my kids started getting to youth sports, right? And around
Mm.
this time, and they had like tournaments, and it was like tournament fees and stuff like that. I'd never been in the sports world, so I wasn't prepared for it, but I wasn't gonna let my kids down. So I would literally not eat or starve and eat ramen noodles all week, like all week, so that the little bit of money that I had, that I wasn't paying my rent with, that I wasn't paying my power bill with, went to those tournaments, went to gas to get them there, get them that little hoodie. And I was making those sacrifices, man. I was just, in a sea of despair at that point. I didn't know what I was going to do. But again, my mind has always been sharp. And so I said, you know what? Let me be realistic with myself. I got used to fast money. So when they were offering me $15 an hour or something, I was like, hell no, 15 bucks an hour. I got to work 10 hours for 150 bucks. I just
Mm.
made 3 bands in 2 hours,
Yeah.
drive. So I was like, dude, hell no, I'm not going to do that. But I had to have a real talk with myself. And I said, dude, you don't deserve $15 an hour. You don't even deserve $10 an hour. You're a shitty employee. You're
Mm.
undependable. You have no work history. I mean, why do you feel like you deserve that? Just because you had another route that paid more doesn't mean you deserve more. So I just had that real conversation with myself. And I said, the best way to get a job is to have one already. That's going to make you hireable. That's going to take well, where's your job history? That's going to take those questions out of it. So that's
Mm.
what I did. I said, hey, man, but in 90 days, I'm out of this joint. I'm using this as a stepping stone. That's it.
And what job was this?
This was at a factory. I think the place was called Riverfront, I believe. And they made some
Okay.
kind of like machinery. Well, I was like, anything that I've ever done, I've pretty much been, all in. So if I was a criminal, I mean, I was all in on the crime. If I was a hustler, I was doing that. Everything I did was all in. So when I went to this job, man, I was busting my ass. I ended up getting promoted like a week into to being there. Went to like this laser room where it was like a lot easier work and just a little bit more like responsibility. But yeah, man, every single day I would go fake taking a number two, and I would just be hitting every single. I like had made a resume from the skills that I learned in the penitentiary, and I made this resume, and I would just anybody that I could do one tap send on the resume to these trucking companies, I would just send it every single day, applying, 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 never hearing anything back, right? And it was about my 85th day, I get a call back from one of these trucking companies. And at the time of this job, this is a dead end job. I'm working 40 hours a week, and I was probably clearing maybe 1,100 bucks a month. So I mean, dude, straight crumbs.
Yeah.
I look back right now and I was like, dude, how the hell did you do that?
Wow. A
But
month.
yeah, it was crazy, man. It was rough. Like I said, though, I just sacrificed all my money for my boys and everything, and I just did the suffering on my end because I knew that I had put myself in that pickle. I knew I had put myself dependent on another man to provide for my household with those
Mm.
opportunities, and so I got myself in that situation. I was the only one going to get myself out, and I never wanted to feel like that again. And that's really was my motivating factor. And so yeah, on the 85th day, I got a call from this guy, set up an interview, and dude, no lie. And this can only be God, man. On the 91st day, I started the trucking job, bro. On the
Mm.
91st day, I mean, talk about
Wow.
manifestation, talk about really hitting your goals. Like it was insane, man. And that job, so I went from making, a little bit over 1,100 a month at this other job
Hmm.
to making $1,000 a week. So I literally just 4X'd my income
Yeah.
overnight. So
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, like I never made this much money. I was like, holy moly, like, and but living in the area that I was with that cheap rent was surrounded by all those influences. Like these were my brothers. I love them. Not my real brothers, but my close friends, and love them. And I had no ill will against them. But it was just like I'm never going to be able to change if I don't get away from these guys, because the easy money is always going to entice me. It's always going to pull me back. So I said, hey, I got the money. My kids were living in a different town, probably like 40 minutes away. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to make the plunge. I'm just going to move out there. It's going to allow me to get my kids more, and it's going to give me the separation that I'm going to need to really kind of change my life and work on me. And so yeah, I just started, and interrupt me at any time if you got any questions, because I could just go on a tangent,
No, no, no.
myself.
So like before we, you're about to move into your to the town with your kids. What town is that called?
It's called Ottawa.
Ottawa. Okay. In
Yep.
Illinois.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the couple like these tough conversations with yourself. Were there things that sparked them? And was that your inner voice? Was that your mother? Was that your father? Who was, like where was the tone of that coming from? I would say, and just because again, I feel that I've been there. I feel like a lot of people have had these pivotal moments of like, yo, enough's enough. Like, stop. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? And
Right.
like, what was that like for you? What caused some of them? And, when was enough for you?
Well, honestly, I don't know where they came from, but I always had it. I think it was just because I was a shy, insecure little boy. And so what I had did, it developed over the years, like I would be scared to do things, but I didn't want to be called like a pussy or a wuss, because I hung out with all gang members. I mean, they're not very sensitive and, lovey-dovey.
Yeah, not very empathetic in the
Right,
gang
exactly.
world.
They don't
Yeah.
give a damn. So I had always developed this thing like, hey, on a count of five, whatever I'm getting scared of, I'm just gonna do it. So I would just count down, and on five, no matter what, if I was standing on a cliff and gonna jump into the water, or if I was gonna go talk to this super hot girl, whatever it is, whatever I was scared of, at 5 seconds, you gotta go. So I think that kind of just trained me that I have that inner voice. So then I would just always talk to myself. I would check myself when I was slipping, like in a joint, like if I was, and it was weird, like I would punish myself too. Like I would, like say if I was doing push-ups or something and I knew that I quit at the end, I would go look in the mirror and say, hey man, you're gonna be a little bitch. You're gonna stop. Yeah, nobody's counting it shit, but you fucked up. You didn't do it right. Get your ass down there and do it. And now you got to do double. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little crazy, but that was just a way that I kind of kept my own structure since I didn't really have it, I guess.
Was
So
like a
yeah, those
father to
voices that just,
yourself.
yeah, exactly.
And now in
And
the mirror, was that an inner voice, or was that you actually speaking audibly out loud into the mirror?
yep, audibly, I would just speak out to the mirror. Yep. I would look myself literally in the eyes in the mirror. Like if I was talking to myself, like as like a parental, like, dude, get your shit together. Like, dude, like lock in, brother. Like, so
Mm.
yeah, I would just check myself, man. And I've checked myself my whole life. Sometimes I listened to that advice and some I didn't, and the times that I did, it really helped me. And the times that I didn't, it hurt me a lot. I've been really talking to myself pretty much my whole life. A lot of the time that I was in the jail, I would always get in trouble in fights and skirmishes and stuff in there. So I was in like segregation a lot, like locked in the hole by myself. Like I had spider friends because I was in there so long without like a lot of human contact and stuff like that. So it really kind of, I wouldn't say like messed me up, but it did something to me, right? It being just isolated alone so long with nothing, it affected me a little bit. And so, but enough of that sad story. But yeah, I was just always, trying to find a way to do something. I always had like side hustles and stuff like that I would do to get money. And, my entrepreneur, kind of bug was set when I was a little guy. I remember back in sixth grade, and not to backtrack too much, but in sixth grade, I wanted to get some money. So before I started stealing, I actually tried a side hustle. And what I
Mhm.
would do is I would go to the dollar store and they had these bags of pixie sticks, right? And everybody, kids love candy. So I would be the candy man. So I would go to this Dollar General store, and I would buy this bag, and it probably had like 100 or 80 or something. I can't even remember how much, but it was a shitload of pixie sticks.
Hmm.
So I would rubber band those up, 10 of them, and I'd sell them for $1. Well, this bag was only $1.
There we
So there's
go.
100. So I could sell like 8 to 10 bundles of pixie sticks for $1, and I'm 10x in my money.
Wow.
And then I started stealing them. So I would steal the entire stock of their pixie sticks and just be selling them all day at school. So the
You were
principal,
making 100% income. You started
man,
stealing.
yeah, I found a way, man. I found a way to get it, man. And then the principal called me in the office and completely shut down my operation. He said, "You're not allowed
Really?
to sell anything here, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Dude, how are you going to turn me down?" I was like, "Dude, I ain't got no money at home. Like, this is the only way I'm getting money."
Mm.
And he's like, "Yeah, well, you can't do it here, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Man, the heck with you then. And so then it was just, then I just went to full-fledged, well, hey, if I can't make it, then I got to take it. And that was just my mindset. And I would just, was pretty good at stealing. And, like I said, but I would just steal like clothes and shoes and school supplies and stuff like that. And then I would, like in school, how they like have you sell candy bars or whatever for like computer equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
What I would do is I would take that box and take out all the bars after I sold it for the fundraiser. And then I would go to this gas station and steal a bunch of candy bars and put them in those little holes. And then I'd go out and resell door to door like I was still fundraising, but it'd be from my own funds.
Wow, man.
So I
That
always had a little side hustle. Like my brain always worked. Like I always wanted money. Like there was something that attracted me to money. I wanted money. I hated being broke. I hated, never having anything and being like looked at and laughed at and teased and stuff. And even though I reacted like violently towards people that would tease me and stuff like that, it's still like, you know, and that was the one thing about it. Like I fought a lot when I was younger and, in my younger years. And I was always a good-hearted guy, but there were some things that happened when I was a child that forced me to have, a big self-defense mechanism that I created. And I was like trying to be a tough guy so that nobody else would mess with me and nobody else would hurt me. And I didn't realize that. But that's where that tough guy persona came from. And because I would always wondered, I was always torn. I would be getting in physical altercations and I would beat somebody up. And obviously that was the goal of the fight. But I'd feel bad. I was like, damn, that's someone's son. Or, like, damn, I didn't have to kick him that last time. Or shit, I really fucked him up. Like I felt remorse after every fight, everyone, even if I hated the guy. I didn't
really,
like hurting people, like it was, but I just did it because, hey, I got to be the tough guy so nobody fucks with me.
yeah.
So
Wow.
it was a very weird position to be in mentally.
I mean, just like I don't know, like a bully with a really, really genuine heart. That's,
Right.
and I hate to say the word bully, but like you're beating people up, but you're
Yeah.
also feeling remorseful about it. Wow. Like most people,
Yeah.
they go down that road. They're like, oh, I fought and I wanted to fight and it was fun and I beat him up and I don't feel bad about it. I don't give a shit what that kid's mom thinks about him getting beat up.
Right.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
man, I was weird. I even I sold weed mostly. I never really got into the heavy narcotics there, but I did at one point. And
Oh.
I was like the world's worst drug dealer because when I started trying to sell the hard shit, I would like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you
No.
spending all your money doing this? And they're like, what? They're like, just shut up and give me my drugs. And I was like, bro, this is crazy. Like, what are we doing here? You know?
You're talking them
And
out of this. Like, you
yeah.
don't
And they're
want
just
this,
like,
man. What are you doing?
right. Like, bro, you got so much potential, man. It was like those guys that talk the strippers out off the
A
pole.
life coach
Right.
selling
Yeah,
drugs.
exactly. So I
Oh,
realized, well, hey, you know what? My heart's not in it. I don't, and sadly enough, man, and I'm not proud of this at all, and I feel a lot of remorse for it. But there was this guy that I was, doing business with, quote unquote, and dude, the man lost his house, his job, his kids, his family, his car, everything, man, to these drugs, and I played a role in that, and after that, I was just like, dude, I don't want to do this. This is horrible. I'm like ruining people's lives. I remember how, as a kid of an addict, how much my parent was, neglectful and not there for me and not able to provide for me because of their struggles. And now here I am putting that burden on someone else's family. Like, dude, like what the hell, man? So I
wow.
was like, dude, help, I'm getting out of that shit. I've never met a mad pothead. So I was like, I felt better selling weed because, I never had a stepdad that smoked a joint and whipped our ass, but every single
Yeah.
one that drank or was on drugs did,
Mm.
so I didn't look at it as weed as a drug. I just, I'm not gonna lie and say when I was a kid I thought it was like medicine, but I just didn't think like, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man. So I, long story short, I kind of built a little entrepreneur spirit in there, but I was working on the wrong side of the law, unfortunately, so coming up with
Mm-hmm.
side hustles, I was always very good at problem solving. Like we'd have a problem, or I remember and this is messed up, but this is how much of a problem solver I was. My kid's mom, when she got pregnant with my first son, she was hungry and wanted to go to her favorite restaurant. It was called Four Star. It was like a little family diner restaurant thing. And so uh we go in. So she tells me she wants to go out there. I have literally zero money in my pocket. I have $0.
Mm-hmm.
But how as a man am I going to tell my pregnant girlfriend, hey, we can't go out to eat. I ain't got no money.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I just had gorilla balls, man. I had balls of steel. And I just went in and I said, man, I'm going to make it happen. Somehow I'm getting this meal for free. And so I go in there, and after we're about halfway through our meal, she's like, I'm full. I'm like, all right, perfect. Pull out 2 pieces of your hair. And she's like, what? I was like, just grab 2 strands really quick and give it here. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, just do it. So she ripped them out, and I put one in my plate and I put one in her plate, bro. And we got the meals comped, and I walked out of there, and I was just like, I felt proud because I was making it happen. But it was just like, man, I was just, like I said, I was just a problem solver, but I was solving
Mm-hmm.
the wrong problems. I was putting all this energy into the wrong outlet. And that was part of my problem, and so luckily, I was able to start turning my life around. And that's when the real big epiphany was when I started driving that semi, because
So,
now I had access to more money than I ever had. Now, I wasn't rich by any means, but to 4x my income overnight,
mm-hmm.
I was like, holy moly. So it started to see like, dang, maybe I can make some money. Maybe I can still kind of make kind of like drug money legitimately. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was about to get out of the game, and one of the pivoting points was, I told you, some of my friends and stuff from back in the day, they were involved in the same industry. And what really was the turning point for me was I was having a conversation at one time, and I'll never forget. I was sitting at the table, and I asked them, I said, hey, so what's the plan, man? Because they were getting, I mean, they were making some good money. And they're just blowing a lot of it. And I said, so hey, what's the plan? Like, what are you guys saving up to? Like, what, like, is it 100,000, a million? Like, what's the goal here? Like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, what's the end goal? Like, you're gonna hustle and then stop and invest it, or like flip houses, or like what are we gonna do with the money? And they're like, man, I'm just gonna keep hustling. And that's when I had like a little shift that I said, so essentially, you're telling me that you're just gonna keep hustling until you either get killed or go to jail.
Killed or caught.
Well, that was a horrible business plan in my eyes. So I was like, well, shit, I can't be part of this business anymore.
Yeah, that's nothing but problems. There's no solving
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no light at the tunnel in this one. So I
Wow.
was smart enough to be able to walk away from that opportunity. And, I remember I had, a couple pounds left that I was looking to get rid of. And I was just like, man, I'll get whatever. I'll just get my money back. I don't need to make any money off of these. But I told myself, cause I gave myself a goal. I said, once you get 10 grand saved up, bro, you're out. You're gonna do it. You're gonna flip a house. You're gonna do something, man. But this 10 grand, this is how you're gonna get out. And I'm not, and so often I was in jail, incarcerated, with people like, I mean, it was my last stop. I was done. I
Yeah,
promised I was
yeah,
getting out the game.
yeah.
So I heard that song and dance. I didn't want to be that guy. So I
Mm.
just got rid of it. And once I made that shift that I was just gonna go straight on legit, I had so many big ticket opportunities that I could have made so much money for. And I mean, dude, I was passing up, tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm broke. I got this 10,000 that I saved up, and that's it, besides what I'm getting weekly from my check.
This is before
And
you move, though.
this was after I moved,
Okay.
but because like I was working with a truck company for probably like a month and a half before I was actually able to move to that other location.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
still kind of dabbling in, the other thing, because the drought had ended. Now there's opportunity there.
Mm.
I was always an opportunist on the wrong side of the tracks. So, I was trying to take advantage of some of that opportunity. But so I saved up my 10 grand, got rid of those last few pounds. And then these opportunities were just coming at me, coming at me, coming at me, coming at me. And I was like, oh my God, like I was losing sleep over. I was like, man, like I never got this many opportunities before. And then I just had an epiphany, and I said, man, this is the universe testing me. Do you really want to get out? Do you really want to stop hitting the easy button? Or are you bullshitting? Because if you're just going to jump at every single time there's an opportunity, you're never going to get out of that trap. You said that $10,000 you were getting out, so be a fucking man of your word. And
Mm.
that's what I did, man. I turned down those opportunities. I said, don't hit me up anymore about it. I'm not doing it. It's just temptation that I don't need right now. And I ended up blocking them. We always used to talk on Snapchat, so I blocked them on Snapchat. And these are my buds, man. I mean, these are right hand men, people I love. that I would go to war with, if their family was in danger. But they were just leading two different lives. And I realized that that wasn't for me, and I needed something more. So driving these trucks, listening to the same rap songs and country songs and R&B songs and all this stuff. And I would, burning out these playlists. I was like, man, this sucks. And I would always have the excuse like, man, I can't do anymore because I'm out of time. I don't have time working 10 hours a day on this driving job, blah, blah, blah. And then I came across this video talking about time hacking and hacking the time that you actually have instead of trying to find more time or new time. So I was like, okay, this seems pretty legit. So I said, all right, well, screw these playlists. I've really, went through these hundreds of times. I know them word for word and I love music, but it wasn't serving me. So I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to start learning. So I stumbled across this podcast called Bigger Pockets. It was a real estate podcast and it had been around for a few years.
It's a
And
great
it really,
podcast.
yeah, I love that podcast.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. It truly did, man, because really what it was is proof of concept that you didn't have to come from money. Because I always had like an old connotation around rich people. Like rich people stepped on people to get there. They were ignorant. They were pompous assholes. Just coming from a state of poverty, that was our impression. Like literally up to about 6 years ago, I thought if you had two stories in your house or if you had a finished basement, you were rich.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never had been exposed to anything other than that. So I was just like, man, I don't even want to be rich because everything I've learned is rich people are assholes. So it was never even something on my radar. I wanted to get money like the drug dealers, but I didn't want to be rich or wealthy. So it was when I started listening to those videos and just, I would listen literally 10 hours a day. I didn't listen to anything else. I was just episode after episode after episode after episode. So
Wow.
I'm getting so many stories, so many different ways to get in the game. And I just started realizing like, you know what? The real estate game is just like the drug game. It's just a different product, but the sales process is very similar, right? We're finding something low, we're selling at a higher price. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, damn, this could be my way out. I already have the hustle down. I know how to hustle, but it was just like, I didn't see any other opportunity. And this was something that I seen an opportunity. And so, I was like diving in. I was like listening to all this stuff, reading all this stuff, being on all the like the blogs and stuff and asking questions and educating myself. But like a whole bunch of other, newbie investors, man, I had analysis paralysis. I was so scared to take a risk with a little bit of money I had that
Mm-hmm.
I just sat paralyzed and didn't do shit, but just learn, 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 learn. And then so I was learning, and then finally I got an opportunity. I was with so I started doing some travel football, and I had been started coaching my sons shortly after I got out of prison. And honestly, coaching really like changed my life, man. It really did. It made me want to set a good example. It made me want to be a better person for not only my kids and to set a good example, but for other people's kids that I was being entrusted with. And I was rough around the edges, man. When I first came and started coaching, I mean, the other parents hated me because I was cussing, I was institutionalized, I was mother effing everybody. I was just, and these are 6-year-old kids, so like I'm out here cussing these fucking cussing kids out and shit. I was a bad apple. That
Wow,
was how
man.
I was coached. My coach
Yeah.
cussed us. We never took offense to it. I never, got butt hurt about it or never told my parents. Like I just figured,
Yeah.
oh shit, I was fucking up.
Just go
Um,
harder or else the
yeah,
curses don't
exactly.
stop. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I have my coach Patty Mack, man. He's like an uncle to me, man. He didn't let up on us and now he's a very close friend of the family. But yeah, sorry. Keep going, man.
Oh,
It's a
yeah, that's
blessing.
awesome. And that's exactly how it was for me. I just took it as, it was something I needed. So, but yeah, I was, cussing them out. And then one of my buddies, and was messed up is these other coaches were getting a whole bunch of complaints about me, but nobody was telling me. So I'm sitting
Yeah.
out here cussing these kids out day after day after day. All these people are whispering behind me, who's this fucking crazy tatted white guy that's fucking ghetto as hell and cussing everybody out.
Yeah.
And so they were like, man, get rid of this guy. They were probably like gonna do one of those from the movies where they got all the like little fires and shit on the
Oh, the
sticks and come
pitchfork.
back with
Yeah.
like some lynch
Run
party
you
or
out of
something.
town.
But one of these guys, he came up and he's like, man, and I learned this after the fact, but they would keep bitching to him. He's like, dude, why don't you guys just say something? And they're like, oh no, no. And I don't know if I like they were scared or nervous or what was going on, but he's like, man, I'm gonna say something, man. And so he talked to me and he's like, hey, man, a lot of parents, man, they don't like all that cussing, man. They're about to kick you out of here.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, shit, I just won't cuss no more. And he's like, it's that simple? And I was like, yeah, I didn't know that it was a problem. Like nobody told me, you know? And but that's just how crazy my mind was. Like, I didn't even think that to consider that was a problem. Like, I never, to me, the abuse that I had went through, it was physical abuse. So
Yeah.
like if I would have got yelled at instead, like I would have been like, fuck yeah, that was like the best punishment ever.
Yeah, it was
Like I
nothing.
wanted those. We used to get
Yeah.
that bare ass with the belt, and all that shit. So I mean, getting yelled at, dude, that's nothing. I would
Hmm.
have took that every day of the week. You could have yelled at me all day long, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I thought I was being a good motivator. The kids were responding to it. It wasn't like they were like, oh, and scared and shit. They were like getting pumped up, running through the wall for me. So, you know, and I
So a
actually
lot.
genuinely cared about the kids.
It's see like right there. And I think a lot of parents are afraid to speak up and speak their mind for two reasons. One, it's like the wife that's just bitching and moaning, but
Right.
two, it's both of the parents combined can see that you're getting that out of them. They
Right.
can't yell at their kid in that way, but you're in a position to influence that kid in a disciplinary way. So I think that maybe that's why nobody said anything of like, yo,
Right.
he's out of his mind, but I like what he's doing. He's
Right.
doing something that I can't do. I want to say this shit to that little shithead, but
For
I
real.
can't. He
And
can.
some of
It's
them needed
him.
it. They needed
Yeah. Oh man,
it.
these kids need that because they don't get it at home.
Yeah,
And the parents are not strong enough to stand up and do that. And when
yeah,
you're in a position as a coach and you don't do that, you're disservicing the kids.
exactly. And that's exactly how I looked at it. I
Mm,
said, I told them a deal. I'm gonna get on you for every little thing you do, but I'm
mm,
gonna cheer for everything, all your successes too. So you
yeah.
ain't just gonna have a guy over here just yelling crazy motherfucker. Dude, when these people are scoring, I'm running down the fucking sideline with them. I'm fucking cheering, dude, you're awesome. You're so good. Like, I'm your fucking biggest cheerleader. I'm fucking going crazy for your ass. Like screaming from the sideline, rah, you got it. Like just going crazy. So it was just like there was a mixture there. I had the right heart, but the message was just being delivered in a tainted fashion that wasn't, favorable to the parents. And I get it. I wouldn't want some fucking crazy ghetto guy cussing my kids out either. But most of the time I was cussing my own kids out,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was, I was, like, come on, what the fuck, dude? And, the other kids, I was trying to, a little bit more, less abrasive too, but still kind of like on them, like kind of drill sergeant-y kind of guy. So, yeah, so the guy just comes to me and he's like, yeah, man, can you tone it down? And shit. I was, oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, no worries. So I did. I was still kind of rough around the edges, but I wasn't cussing as much. And one would slip out every once in a while, like, and usually it was like good.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what like they do something like fuck yeah, oh shit, like
Yeah. The knee-jerk reactions. Yeah.
right, right. There's off impulse, man. I'm a very passionate guy. I'm a very, I just wear it all out, man. If I'm happy, you know it. If I'm passionate, if I'm excited, I'm worked up, you know it, and so yeah, the guy, I started changing, but that's really what started changing me and changing my outlook on it is being with those little kids, man, and having to have the patience and realizing that and then up till until I started coaching, I really never ever thought about anything from anybody else's perspective, really. Like
Mm,
like with the kids, like I never realized that even with my own kids, and I struggled with that for the first probably, 6 years of their life, I figured everything had to be the same with them. And I treated them exactly the same. And my expectations were exactly the same, not knowing that, hey, two people can come from the same place and have, and be totally different, which my sons were. I always seen that me and my siblings were different, but we all had different parents. You know, we
yeah.
all either had the same mom or the same dad, but different, different other. So all my siblings are half. So it
Yeah.
was just like, of course they're different because they don't have the same mom, dad. Hey, me just being me, I'm just thinking, put two and two together. Hey, same sack, same hole. I mean, these should be twins, damn near. It just came out at different times. Uh, so, but that was one thing I had to get over. And then that's one thing I was able to learn too from the coaching is that all these kids, you can get on some kids and they'll respond to it. The other kids, they need a little bit like a little sugar coat, a little, pat on the back. Good job, buddy. Go out there and get them next time and shit. They need a little bit extra reassurance. So it started to really teach me how to really understand what these kids needed and be the coach that they actually needed, opposed to just being the rough and tough coach that I was used to. So it really started getting me to change. I really started locking in, and I used to do music. I used to do rap and R&B and tour around with like major artists and stuff like that and do all that stuff. But I hung it up to be there more for my boys. But what I was able to do is turn that passion and that creativity that I once had for the music and the love of the music that I had, and I made some songs for the kids. So like I made like a little kit, like they had all their names in it and their positions and stuff they were doing, and made a
What?
little song that they could play and stuff. And I did a couple of those over the years for the boys. And yeah, so I was just all passionate, man. I was doing everything for the right reasons. It just I didn't know how to be better. I felt I was doing really good. I was like, 10 years ago, I would have never came out here for these badass kids and been working with these guys and caring and volunteering my time and being out here sweating my ass off, you know. But the other cool thing about it was more like a parenting hack for me. It was a way that I was able to get more time with my children that all these other parents weren't. They were dropping them off and they were losing 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then plus on the
Mm.
game day, they would come. Where this was a way that I could spend quality time with my kids, see the growth, empower other kids as well as my own, and be there to, first, front row seat to all these new memories, man. And so that was one of the most beneficial things that I ever did is getting the coaching. It taught me to be more caring, more compassionate, more empathetic, more sympathetic, and really just kind of I feel like the Grinch, like when the Grinch got converted and his heart got big as hell at the end of the movie, like that's how it was. Like I was a hardened, but I always had a good heart. I just really hit it all the time. Like I thought it was corny to be nice. I thought it was corny to go out of your way. Everything that I had always done in the environments that I had, come up in is that everything came with contingencies. Like nobody ever did something for you and didn't expect anything in return. Like you were paying in some regard. Even in the penitentiary, they always say, "Hey, don't eat the Snicker on your pillow," because you're gonna owe somebody. So I grew up in that lifestyle, realizing, hey, ain't nobody coming to save you, ain't nobody gonna come do shit for you unless there's something in it for them. So being volunteering my services, volunteering my time, being taught me to be more patient, more caring, more kind, and so ultimately I ended up becoming a better father from it as well, and more caring and compassionate. And I still have relationships with some of those kids that we coach, and I would see them, and I was always like, they always say like, man, I'm one of your favorite coaches. So it was just so ironic. Your mom hates me, but you love me. It's crazy, right? If she would only talk to you about me, I mean, you guys would be on the same page. But it was cool though. A lot of those moms that hated me in the beginning, they did a whole 180 degrees and they're like, dude, we're like, we hated you so much. We couldn't stand you. We wanted you to leave. But like, man, we are so glad that you stuck around. We're so glad that you stayed there for our kids. We know that you're doing it for the right reasons and stuff like that. And
It's hard.
yeah, so that was cool to come full circle for those people and really kind of turn the page. And then I started living a life of just positivity. Like I figured that if anything that I was doing on the day to day that I felt comfortable doing, I felt like, damn, I haven't changed enough. Like I got to be the corniest, lamest, fucking, you know, farthest version from myself that I could create and kill off the old me, or I'm just gonna always have come back. I can't leave anything that's like still kind of tiptoeing. I can't leave my foot on one side of it. Like I got to be all in. So I started opening the doors for old ladies and saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and all this shit. And I felt like a straight cornball, man. I felt like, man, what the hell are you doing this for? And some people wouldn't say thank you, and I wanted to cuss them out. But I was just like, what the fuck? I'm holding your door. I ain't the fucking doorman. I'm just a regular guy. Like what the hell? You should be appreciating me, man. But I was just still some stinking thinking that was left over in there, and then but I just kept with it, kept with it. I was just like, and then slowly, positive things just started happening in my life. And when I was living that negative lifestyle, and I was ignorant and mad and angry all the time, just bad shit just kept happening over and over and over. And I was always like, man, what the hell? Like, when can I ever catch a break? But I was creating that. That's the energy that I was putting out into the world. So that was what I was receiving. So once I came into realization about that, I was able to really kind of change that mindset and really start working on that. And that was the benefit of getting around like mentors and being around communities and other successful people where I was able to really kind of, unwrap that and make that change.
Wow. So there's a couple of key things that I wanted to unpack there.
Okay.
And it really seems that, and this is maybe an assumption or just an understanding of the situation here, that through coaching, it was almost as if you were burdened with the role of a role model for both
Yeah.
your boys and all of these other boys. And it seemed as if it influenced a lot of decisions in terms of picking what was right as opposed to what was easy
A
in that
thousand percent,
way.
man. You hit it right on the head. That was one of the other reasons that I wanted to hang it up with the other activities that I was involved in, is because I looked at it as like how embarrassing it's going to be not only for my kids, but for the other kids on the team if I get arrested, or if I get
Mm.
jammed up in an indictment, or if I get a drug bust, or some kind of shit, and I was just like, I can't do that to these kids. And once, and I know it sounds corny as hell, but once I started coaching, man, I love these little kids, man. I wanted them to win, dude. I was their biggest fans. It was like they're my own extension of my own little family, like I
Yeah.
wanted these kids to win. I wanted them to succeed. I wanted to see them happy. I wanted to see them achieve great stuff. So like I was bought in. I bought in. I was passionate about it. I was trying to be the coach that I wanted. I was trying to be the dad that I wanted and that I needed. And so, and I was far from perfect, man. I still am, and I still struggle with things, but a whole hell of a lot better than I was.
Yeah. But that's again, it's to me, it's about again embracing, as you said, embracing the new you, leaving the old you behind. But it seemed as if the coaching and the young men gave you a reason, that gave you the why, gave you the
Yeah.
continuation. I mean, do you think that a program like that for people in the system, because I think you had people looking up to you like, yo, I'm not just accountable to me anymore. I'm accountable to not only to my boys, but always also these boys and these families and all these people. I mean,
Yep.
do you think a system like that, in a way, could be beneficial to pe a program like that could be beneficial to people in the judicial system?
Absolutely. I think if people were able to separate, and obviously if they've been involved in any kind of sex crimes or harmful acts to children, they don't need to be nowhere around them. But
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
there are people that need that structure, and the only way to learn how to provide that structure is to actually get in it. It's just like you can't read, you can't learn to ride a bike at a seminar, right? You got to get on this
Mhm.
bike, you got to feel how it feels, you got to pedal it. There's things that until you start riding it, you're not going to know. And that's the same thing with coaching. The crazy thing about the coaching, as I became a coach and I had zero experience, like none.
Yeah.
I played for a little bit and got kicked off the team because I was ineligible because I didn't do my work.
Mm.
So I didn't have like this vast amount of sports experience. I just realized that, hey, if my kids are in sports, number one, and what I started doing is training my kids too. So like my kids were like some of the best on the team,
Mhm.
especially my little guy. But I trained them, and the reason why I was so adamant about training them, and people were like, "Oh man, like you're working them too much." No, I'm not, because guess what? If they're really good in sports, guess the chances of them doing dumb shit in high school and hanging out with the wrong crowd and getting caught up in the wrong things lessens, because they're not going to take the chance of getting kicked off the team for doing some dumb stuff. So in a way, it's almost helping me parent them. So of course I'm going to put in that work. Of course I'm going to do that for
Mhm.
them. I
Yeah.
didn't know any other ways to parent, but I realized that, hey, I've seen some proven formulas, and if I realized that why I got in a lot of trouble is because I was bored and broke.
Mhm.
So if I could take out the boredom out of that, at least that limits half of that, right?
Yeah.
And then if I could get them to be passionate about something and chase goals, now that's going to build life skills that they're going to need, down the road. So I just thought it was a win-win. And I got into it and I fell in love with sports. I started coaching, then I started coaching wrestling. So, and that was, man, that was a huge sport that I really absolutely fell in love with, and I hated in high school, but it actually saved my life. Yeah. It
Really?
yeah, when I was a teenager, man, I was 16. And so I had this guy, and I actually want to touch on this guy that he was a very good role model in my life that I was lucky to have. His name was Frank. I call him my Uncle Frank, but he was no relation to me.
Mhm.
He was an employer of my mom's, that he had a carnival business. So my mom would like go work with him on the weekends for like extra cash. And so he kind of took me under his wing, and man, he really saved me. And I want to dive into the story really quick just to give some context on Frank. And so what happened is, like I was saying, that when I was a youngster, I was just going in and out of trouble, in and out of jail, in and out of jail. And right after my dad died, I was about to get violated again. We were living in a motel at the time, and my parole officer was coming over to violate me. And this guy said, "Hey man, let me come over there and let me just talk to the parole officer guy." And I was like, "Okay," like I don't know why, but and he's in Frank was a retired out of the military, was a staff sergeant, for 20 years, served in the Gulf and stuff like that. So, he had that kind of like not drill sergeant, but like he had like that leadership ability, and he was obviously a business owner as well. So he went there. We met in a hotel with my pro officer and this guy Frank, and he told my pro officer, he said, "Hey, listen, man, give me a chance. Let me take him. Let me try to help him. If he's too lost cause, or if he keeps fucking up, you can take him, and I won't try again. But at least give him some try, because you know how many times have you violated him?" And the guy was like three or four or whatever the case was at the time. And he's like, "That's obviously not working. It's not helping him. It's not fixing him.
Mm.
Let me try. Let me have a stab at it. Worst case scenario, you just violate him in a month anyway." And he's like, "Okay." So I pretty much went with that guy, Frank, after that. was kind of like living at his house in like this camper that he had. And like we get up and PT and we do work around the community and stuff like that. And he would give me opportunities to make some money and buy me clothes and stuff. Well, he started bribing me to do sports. So he's like, if you do football, I'll buy you all. Like at the time, South Pole was like the cool stuff around here.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll buy you a bunch of South Pole stuff. I was like, hell yeah, like I'll do whatever, like stealing this stuff. So if you're gonna buy it for me, I'm like, that's even better. So he did it with football, and then wrestling season was the next season that came up, and he was like, all right, cool, I'll buy you some more. I forgot what he offered me, but it was
Yeah.
some kind of bribe.
Echo
Um,
Unlimited.
so I went to a wrestling practice like right as I first signed up, and man, it wasn't for me. I was when I was a what was it freshman? Yeah, when I was a freshman, I was like 6'1", I was 6 foot 185. So I wasn't a small guy. I had a pretty good build on me. So I got stuck with the freaking fat guy wrestlers. So these guys are like stinky and big and gross and sweaty. And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm trying to chase chicks. I don't want to roll around here with these guys. And then they had a singlet on, so you can like see their little chub. And I was just like, man, this is not for me, man. This is whack. And but so I was like, man, I'm skipping every practice. Screw this practice. It ain't even worth that shit. So I kept telling my uncle that I was going to practice, but I wasn't. I was just ditching.
Hmm.
And well, the one day he told me, hey, I'm coming to watch you practice today. I was like, oh shit. um, I was like, damn, I'm stuck now. So in the transition of like getting out of the last bell and when you had to report to practice was like probably like 10, 15 minutes of transition time there. And I was standing there just kind of congregating with all the other students in the lunchroom there. And my buddy Brad came up to me and he's like, hey, bud, he's like, I just got my license. I got a car for my birthday. I'm ready to go out. We're gonna go cruising and shit. He's like, come on. And I was like, no, I can't, man. I can't today, bro. Like, I gotta go to wrestling. He's like, wrestling? What the fuck? I didn't know you wrestled. I was like, dude, I don't. I was like, but my uncle, man, he's gonna be here, man. I gotta be there. He's gonna catch me up. And so he's like, are you sure, man? I was like, bro, I'm gonna hit you up afterwards and we'll go cruising then. And he's like, all right, cool, man. And then, he ran up out of there. Well, that night, man, he ended up like drinking and stuff like that and ended up going around these curves, ended up killing himself, paralyzing one of the guys that was in the car with him. So that could have easily been me, man, and would have been because I would have, there would have been no reason I would have got out of the car because I had nobody that had a car. Um,
Wow.
so so yeah, man, it saved my life. I still didn't like it. I mean, I didn't go after that other day either. But I got humbled by some wrestlers though, because we had a no nonsense wrestling coach, and I mean, this dude, would choke a booger out of your ass, and he didn't give a damn, man. And he did that to me one time. I actually threw a ball at the back of his head, and he was a swole jack guy. And he was our football coach, and he was filling in for PE. I think the teacher was gone or something, so he was
Mhm.
the sub. And when he turned around, I smoked him with a dodgeball in the back of the head, and I turned around, who the fuck was that? Blah blah. Nobody's saying nothing. And then me being young guy, thinking I'm a hard ass, thinking I'm Superman. I was like, ah, that was me, coach. My bad. I missed. And started laughing, and he's like, oh, you missed. Oh, okay. So as we were walking out after like, he's like, hey, Munson, stay back. I gotta holler at you, and I was like, okay. And so I stayed back, man. As soon as the kids were out of eye shot, man, and man grabbed me up by my throat and pinned me up against the lockers. And he's like, man, you think I need this fucking job, man? I don't need this shit. I do this shit for you guys. But I ain't gonna be fucking tolerating no disrespect. I was like, yes, sir. Yes, coach, man. And so he was one of those guys. Well, one day I was walking by the wrestling room after getting taped up for football,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh man, look at these queers, look at these gay guys,
Oh
in the
no.
singlets. So the coach is like, oh yeah, come here. So he's like, I walked in there and he's like, you guys think you're badasses, right? It was me and some of the other D linemen. I was like, hell yeah, coach. He's like, you guys are tough. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he's like, all right, cool. I got this guy for you right here. I want you to wrestle with him. I was like, come on, coach. The guy was. Probably like a buck 35 soaking wet. I was
Oh
like, bro,
no.
I'm like, come on, coach. Like, man, you're
It's a
I'm gonna
setup.
hurt your guy, bro. Like, what are you doing? He's like, man, this guy's not even good enough to make the roster. Don't worry. I was like, all right, man, you asked for it. 10
Mm.
seconds, man, I was folded up in a cradle, man. I felt super embarrassed. I jumped out, and like I said, I mean, I've been the tough guy my whole life, so I just got folded up for the first time ever. So my ego was a little hurt, and
Wow.
I jumped up, looking around and shit. My guys are laughing, and I was like, man, fuck y'all. And I was like, all right, man, he did some crazy shit, like let's run it back, and he's like, all right, man, in 10 seconds, the guy hit me with the same takedown, the same cradle, everything. So I was like, so it was after that day, I had respect for wrestlers. Still didn't want to do it, but I
Mm.
respected it. I was like, all right, these motherfuckers are tough, man. There's something about them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I never liked it, but then once my sons got into wrestling, man, I really fell in love with it and how it's such a mental test, and physically as well. It's the most hardest, grueling sport that you can do, and just the mental toughness that you need to have to be a wrestler and be a good wrestler and to stick with it. It really attracted me to the sport, and I really regretted not doing it, which is why I ended up getting into jujitsu because it was my form of kind of wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, but yeah, so I got into that, fell in love with wrestling, started coaching wrestling, and I would just learn all day, self-taught videos of how to coach football and wrestling and stuff like that. So yeah, the coaching really revolutionized my upbringing. But yeah, my uncle Frank, man, he really changed my life a lot because he was a positive role model that set goals for me, that gave me opportunities to work and to really work hard and to know what that's like. And also he had a very big heart. And he was the first guy that I seen that was like swole and big, that was like nice, like and not like
Mm.
scary or intimidating. Like the he would give you the shirt off his back, man. He was like one of the kindest guys I ever met. Super awesome, super funny. Like just man, just like he was what I needed, without knowing it. And I just owe so much of my maturity and my growth to him. And so I wanted to take that time to just talk about him because I really do respect him and everything that he did for me and the lessons that he taught me. I'm still, are still coming into fruition these days now. And so shout out to my Uncle Frank.
Shout out Uncle Frank, man. I mean, thanks for sharing that. I think so many young men need an Uncle Frank. And I think there are many men in the position to be an Uncle Frank for young men that are lost, that are angry, and maybe they don't feel like they're worthy enough to be the voice of reason for this struggling young man, and they certainly are. I mean,
Right,
it's how many people need that pat on the shoulder or just a little bit of guidance along the way because they're sick of hearing it from their parents, if their parents are even there or around or in jail or not or whatever. But the
right,
fact that, this guy stood up, said, "Yo, I got this. You've been doing it. It ain't working. What you're doing ain't
right.
working. Let's try this." I mean, he welcomed you into his home. I mean,
Yep.
wow, that is and I give a lot of credit to you as well because you didn't take it for granted. You didn't take him
Right.
for a sucker or take advantage of it. He said he was coming to wrestling practice. You showed up and got your ass kicked. Like that's
Right.
what it is. It sucks, but you
Yep.
gotta do what you gotta do. You couldn't hang out with your boy and thank God you didn't. But at the same time, I mean, wow, 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 man. It's
And he was actually, besides my dad, he was the first male that I ever respected. Like I cared if I disappointed him. I cared if I let him down. And that's why I busted my ass.
mm,
Because you took a chance on me. And like I said, loyalty, I've always been loyal to a fault. It's a gift and a curse for me. But, with him, it was just like, man, I want to do everything to help this guy. I did so much free labor for him. I did so much, and he did so much free stuff for me that he didn't ask for anything in return.
mm,
And a lot of it in the teaching, I mean, he taught me how to hustle and to be a salesman without me even knowing because I'm working the carnival, selling like shit, trying to get people to buy stuff or play the game or ride the ride or whatever. So it really helped me. He was there a lot. He taught me how to drive. He taught me I mean he just taught me so many things that I just can't name. It's just the things that come up in life and I was like, damn, Uncle Frank, man, he was right. He was right again. He was right again. And super great guy, man. Still awesome guy. We don't get to talk as much anymore, unfortunately, just because I'm not around and he's spending time with his grandkids and stuff like that. But yeah, I love him every time I see him. I just tell him like, man, thank you so much, man. Like I needed you so much and you stepped up in a way that nobody else was willing to take a chance on me. Everybody else wrote me off as, oh, he's just a fuck up, he's just a criminal, he's a lost cause, and you didn't, like even like when nights and weekends, this guy was, I mean, if this doesn't show the kind of character that he had, when nights and weekends existed, I didn't have any phone, obviously. I was broke as hell.
mm,
My mom wasn't buying us a damn cell phone. We barely had a house phone. So he would literally on Friday nights give me his phone and let me have it for the entire weekend so that I could like talk to girls and like do that
wow.
stuff. Like so the man went without a phone all weekend so that I could. My dad was a tough guy, but he loved me. And I heard stories of how he was before the drugs and stuff like that. And obviously the drugs changed and he was a monster on drugs, but I always heard that he was a great guy too. But I didn't me and him one on one, I got to see it because like he just loved me so much and I could just never do any wrong in his eyes.
Mm,
But I really never got that like caring from a man. Like it was always, like I said, I grew up in the hood, so it was just like, man, get out of here with that gay shit. Like I don't want, like, don't say no love you to a man and to hug you and shit. Like I was just too tough, like so it was just it's something I never did. And it was like even awkward, like with my sons, like for the first 6 months that they were here on earth, like I didn't feel anything for them. Like it was just like I did what I had to do and wipe the asses that I need to wipe, but I didn't feel any kind of connection whatsoever with them. So it was a very weird space. And then slowly I started getting it. And I found that's been a struggle that I've always had in my life is like trusting people enough to love and like to be vulnerable. And that's when I started changing my mindset to be more vulnerable, to share my story, to be transparent and open and honest with people to try to help them. And ever since I've gotten the entrepreneur journey, I've just really been trying to give back and really just try to help people and pour back into the community that I took from for so long.
Wow. Did that not live up to the hype? I don't do this, but I told you so. I don't like doing this, but I told you so. Ah, man, Matthew Munson, what an unbelievable story. What an unbelievable expression of vulnerability, courage, and perseverance, man, to keep going. Every peak had an intense, even more deeper valley that he had to climb out of every single time. Wow. Wow. Listen, I'm so grateful for everybody's time, for you guys listening to this. Listen, I want to be able to deliver you guys many more of these amazing guests and stories. So, number one, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you give the episode a like. And you know what? Let me know which valley was your favorite that he had to dig himself out. Which one was it? Was it when he got denied parole? Was it when he had to, when COVID hit and he thought his fence business that he just invested his last bit of savings in was going to go under? Which of the valleys was it for you? Write it down below. And if any of your friends that you know, friends or family that are going through a valley, that are going through the struggle right now, send this to them. They can see what perseverance and resilience looks like on a realistic level. So, listen, this isn't here without you guys, the community behind it. I'm immensely grateful for you. Thank you, thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the My Tribe podcast. Until next time.